interesting, let's see if we can do it. Okay, this is an interesting thing because this is from the August 2018 QST, right? And it talks a little bit about what's going on with it, but basically judging from Logbook of the World entries, more than 2.3 million FT8 contacts were uploaded in 1 month. That was a net gain of 1.2 million contacts on all modes over the same month a year earlier. So this is really impacting the number of QSOs that are being done today. And according to Norm W3IZ, he basically said that FT8 is really taking over the world in terms of a mode that a lot of people are getting interested in. But it only slightly decreased the number of SSB and CW contacts that are going into the Logbook of the World. So it's an important mode. There's a lot of it. If you want to get on the air and you want to make a contact, there's always somebody on FT8, at least on some band, 40, 20, wherever. This chart was from the December 2013 QST, and since this is a digital mode and it's keyboard to keyboard and somewhat automated, you ask yourself, well, why do this mode at all? Well, what we're talking about here is, let me get my pointer, and I'll read this to you just quickly. If you take this blue line as CW, and this is the ability to hear and have a QSO in CW, and they call it 0 dB. In the days when we had AM, it was minus 27 dB below what CW was. So CW had a big advantage over AM. And even sideband, CW has an advantage of 17 dB. FM and RTTY, CW has still been, the choice that you would make if you were using or working in very poor conditions, weak signals. But then we came up with PSK31, and that had a great advantage. As a matter of fact, 9 dB according to this chart. However, Joe Taylor put together JT65, which has been used for a few years. And JT65 had 25 dB advantage over CW. So for weak signals, this was great. He designed this for moonbands, right? EME, where signals are very, very weak. Well, the thing was with JT65, it was very popular for a long time until this FT8 thing came aboard. I'm not going to go through some of the detail here, but this is more comparisons just like this chart. So if you look at this presentation later, you can read more detail on that. This is a little bit about what Joe did anyway. FT8 is available on his free software, WSJTX. You can get this downloaded. It was created by Joe. He first developed this for EME, as I mentioned, but FT8, he wanted to develop FT8 for HF because the JT65 was kind of really didn't have a lot of headroom on it. It couldn't give you strong signal reports. In other words, if you are an HF and you had a good path and you had a lot of power, you would have a strong signal. It was meant for weak signals. So he developed the FT8 to handle the signal capabilities of HF. He's got some other things here, but what he added was auto sequencing, because one thing he did was he really cut down the amount of time it takes to have a QSO. So the important characteristic here of FT8 compared to JT65 is it's approximately 15 seconds. So there are transmission intervals that happen, and they happen every 15 seconds, where the other modes, the earlier modes like JT65, it took about 45 seconds to complete a transmission, and then the next one would start at the top of the minute. I won't go through some of this detail here, but it's all those specs on how it's put together. This is what I was talking about, JT65, where these bottom three, FT8, JT9 was very similar to JT65, a little more efficient. So FT8, you can see it's a range of minus 50 dB to plus 49. Well, in reality, the sensitivity is really about minus 20 dB. And when we say that, that's 20 dB below the noise floor on your receiver. And that's a very weak signal. And very often you can't see it on a pan adapter, you can't even hear it. But I've had QSOs FT8 down to -20 and even -21 sometimes.
Full information?
Excuse me?
With full information?
Yes, but I'm going to get into what information is actually transmitted here in just a second. So this is what I was saying before. Signals become visible on the waterfall around -26 dB. And they become audible if you have good hearing about -15 dB. So that's makes this kind of interesting. Well, this is very limited. This is not a chat mode. Okay, this FT8 does not let you really have a lot of conversation in any way with anybody. The essence of this is to just have a contact. And to do so, it's just a QSO Essentials. And when you're in a contest or some rare DX station and you're working them in a pileup, what does that QSO go like? Well, it starts off with that station calling CQ. You know, CQ, this is N2ESP. And if I'm there and I want to talk, have a contact with this station, I'll just send my call letters in CW or sideband. I'll just throw my call in, right? And that other station then will come back with, recognizes me, you're 599. I come back 599, thank you, or maybe Roger 599, thank you. And then the station will basically set them free to complete the QSO. So this FT8 is really just a contact type of keyboard QSO. So what it is just these minimal pieces of information being sent. All right. The way this would work in FT8, it would be sent like this. It would be CQ, NY4I, and the grid square.
What?
Grid square.
Grid square. Tom's up in New England somewhere. And the next transmission would be, I would say NY4I, this is NZ1Q, I'm an EL87. He would come back and say, NZ1Q, DE, NY4I, you are -05 dB signal noise ratio. I would then come back and say, NY4I, NZ1Q, Roger, I received it, you are -03 dB signal noise ratio. He would come back with a Roger 73, and I would say 73, and that completes the QSO. And that's all FT8 is. There's no other information being transmitted. So within a minute or a minute and a half, really, with these 6 interchanges, you can complete a QSO. This software was used very widely in the last the expedition, Ducie Island, and several people here I know work Ducie Island using FT8, and I got on a few bands. And they were using it in a mode called Fox and Hound mode, which is really great for a DX-Edition. It can work multiple people at the same time. It's really cool stuff. So this is kind of an interesting capability, and I got into it just because I like to try new things, but I do use this. Let's see, you can interface your transmitter to, or your transceiver to the PC by using several techniques. I'm not going to go into this detail here, but there's a couple different ways of doing this, and I'm not going to spend any time on it. You can look this stuff up. But this is basically the waterfall that you will see in the software for FT8. So this would be the frequencies at the top. This would be your dial frequency here, 500, 1,000 hertz, 2,000 hertz, 3,000. You'll notice that this is basically the bandwidth of a sideband signal.
Yeah, it is.
And all of these little bright spots here are different signals being transmitted. And you can see the very faint ones in here. There's some very faint things in here too. So these are all signals, and they transmit in 15-second increments. This will be part of what Tom will show you in the demo. Let's see, one more I think. Yeah. This is the main screen you would operate on. Basically, this is a list which keeps rolling upward as to everybody you decode in that 15-second increment. These are all the stations that are on that band transmitted. And you can see some people might be calling CQ as these pink and green ones are. Other people having a QSO. If you follow this 15-second increment after each other, you can see that transition going back and forth to those stations. When you have a QSO, it'll appear here, this side, and basically the other parts here are just to operate the software.
Question?
Yeah, go ahead.
On that screen, you're showing transmission, so I've got FT8, which I'm understood that it's TX evens / first. Can you tell me what the significance to that is?
Where is this we're looking at?
Down to your right, next to the
Right here?
27.
Next to the,
Over here?
it says 77,
Oh, this is the frequency, this is the dial frequency.
no, we're talking about TX even.
Yeah, oh, even or first, right, okay. You can set that so you can transmit on the even quarter minutes, but typically we don't use that. It was the same thing, they had this in JT65 and JT9. You know, typically we don't use it.
So you just leave the box?
Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
That's a carryover from 6-meter protocol on which station transmits first based on who's east or west. I think that's where that carries
Yeah,
over from.
that, or it may have something to do with the EME stuff too, yeah. So that's that. The other things, you can hold your transmit frequency. You want to set this up for auto sequence and call and why auto sequence. That's a big part of this. In other words, if you double click on somebody calling CQ, the auto sequence of what you send and what he sends happens automatically after that. So your QSO doesn't take a lot of work. The other interesting thing about this software is it records the audio for those 15 seconds. At the end of the 15 seconds, it analyzes that audio of all those stations that we saw in the waterfall, all these stations. It decodes them all and displays them here, and it actually makes 2 passes through that audio file to decode these stations. The first pass are all the strong signals. The second pass is they actually subtract the strong signals from the audio file and decode the rest of the signals that are there. It's kind of amazing stuff when you read about it. Anyway, I'm about done with this, and these are some links. If you look at this later, you'll be able to capture these links and we can get the software and that stuff. So we're going to do the demo. The only thing I want to say before I hand it over to Tom is that this August they released some new software. There's another guy who took this open source and he developed something else called JS8 or JS8 call, and it works exactly like this, except the difference is that it's a chat mode, and you can carry on a conversation for 10 minutes and go back and forth. So something new you'll be seeing JS8.
One other thing, can I add one thing more? Thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you use WSJTX or using FT8, there is a program that's sort of an add-in program called JT Alert, which is very useful because it'll auto-log into HRD or DX Keeper or other logbook programs. So it's very handy to automatically handle the logging part for you. So separate program, but well worth having on the same computer.
All for free.
All right, this is a demo program, and this is what it sounds like, right? Okay, and maybe a little microphone for but the color stations, the ones calling CQ, the pink ones are the ones I have not worked, the green ones are the ones I have worked already in some other day or time in my log. So we're hearing the stations now, and it's going to decode these, and you're going to see this move up as it decodes the new ones. So there's USA, there's Canada, and a couple others. When I want to work somebody, I'm going to double click him, as Tom did before, and it will enable the transmit. So here's a few more people in the US. I was looking for somebody that was maybe in maybe South America or somewhere else, but I was trying to see if there was any DX coming up. Here's a guy in Canada, which I've talked to. This is the sequence of what gets transmitted. So you can see exactly what your next transmission will be. This is the next one to go. And here is a station I haven't worked, but it's a DX station. And I double-clicked them, but I accidentally hit the green one, and I didn't want to do that, so I canceled that. You saw it, and I wanted to hit Ecuador here, this Ecuadorian station. So now the yellow here. I'm transmitting to Ecuador. Now hopefully he's transmitting back to me. So the end of the 15 seconds comes up. It does another decode. And no, he called CQ again. He didn't hear me. So I'm going to call him again a second time. So I'm transmitting now. And hoping to put Ecuador in my log tonight. Well, I'm on 40 meters. It designates it right here. 40 meters. Here's the frequency, the dial frequency. So after that transmits, I transmit to him. He's going to transmit back to me, hopefully. So yeah, he transmitted back, but he's still calling CQ. I'm not giving up because of the rare DX. So we'll go through one more cycle, and you can see the time here. These are the time slots. This is 00, and this is 30, and I transmitted in the 15 seconds in between that at 15 seconds after the minute started. If I want to hold my came back in orange. He did transmit to me. So he transmitted to me, and he sent me the signal report, minus 19 dB. And here I am. I'm now sending back, Roger, I received that, and you are minus 18 dB. And that's taken from his transmission, which was minus 18 dB. So this, once I double-click him and he responds, it goes down this list automatically and completes that QSO. So he comes back and he says, oh, minus 19 dB. He's repeating his transmission because he didn't receive me. So he's telling me he's repeating his transmission because he didn't receive me, and I can retransmit my transmission. This happens automatically. And the frequency that is displayed here, like 1762, that's on the waterfall. Remember I said it was started at 0, it was 1,000 hertz, 2,000 hertz. Okay, now he said, Roger, Roger, 73. In other words, he did receive me, he decoded that properly, and I come back and say 73, and it's done. That's the end. Everything stops. Look for somebody else in the list to work. So just to complete this at that point, the program, because I do have what Tom mentioned, and that is the JT Alert software running, it will log it for me. And you'll notice that Puerto Rico came up here. Here's another one, Puerto Rico, a couple of the stations. I can work somebody else now if I wanted to. This logs it automatically. This puts it in my logbook. I can change my power level, 40 watts, put it in the logbook, click OK. And almost at the end of this, but I did bring up, I moved the waterfall window right on top of this for a second. You'll see it in a second here. We've got Puerto Rico again. I moved the waterfall window over here. You can see this every 15 seconds you've got one of these increments. And fair number of stations, and very light, very weak stations in here. It basically shows the signal strength of the station, but what happens is during the 15 seconds, this builds the station amplitude as the time goes on, and you can see where the strong signals are and some of the weak signals as well. So anyway, that's pretty much what you'll see if you try this software. Pretty interesting because there are a lot of people using it these days, and it's only going to be more and more. You know, in this kind of communications, this suits everybody in the world because you don't need to speak English per se. This happens automatically, and or you could get some good DX. A friend of mine that started using it last spring. He's worked 100 countries with it already. I know I've worked more than that. So that's it. Thank you for your attention tonight. I'm sorry we didn't have a more